Can we now move on to your relationship with Minister Mchunu? And you'll see that in your statement from paragraphs 18 to 30 and also 34 to 39.
Let's see. Can I just check with Mr. Nkabinde? The matters that you say are still pending, are they part of the information that you reported to the then minister?
That is correct, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Now, you know by now, Mr. Nkabinde, that your relationship with Minister Chunu has come under some scrutiny in this honorable committee in relation to your appointment as his chief of staff. Now, we rewind a bit to when you first met him. There were allegations that you assisted Minister Mchunu in relation to charges that were brought against him for defeating the ends of justice in relation to the murder of Xolani Nkosi. Do you recall that?
Yes, I recall.
Can you recall what these charges were, and then subsequently what was your role?
Thank you, Chair. It was around about a year of 2017 where we received a complaint from Minister Mchunu at IPID. Yes, we received a complaint from Minister Mchunu. In that complaint, Minister Mchunu was complaining about a progress of a murder case of Xolani. Xolani was one of his security detail while he was a premier. That the murder of Xolani, he's not happy with the progress, that there are always clues leading to the perpetrators, but the police are not taking that direction. And in fact, they now regard him as a suspect. So he said he feel that, or he suspect that there's an harassment by the police, which were the hawks targeting him instead of pursuing the murder case. So he felt that there is something untoward the behavior of the police. Hence, he reported it in the ICD, since ICD were responsible for a conduct against the police. So that is a complaint we've received in IPID. That's how I got to know, but I will explain further until we got to him, we interviewed him and so forth, Chair.
The complaint from Minister Chunu, at that time he was no longer the Premier of KZN and didn't hold any particular office.
That's correct, Chair.
And that is at CMN2.
I found it, Chair.
You found it?
Yes.
So, Mr. Nkabinde, we're not going to go through the whole complaint, but you'll see in the first paragraph, Mr. Xolani Nkosi was shot dead in the evening of 17 July 2015 at Dumisani Mackay village, also known as Mshlatuzi village in Mpangeni in KZN. He worked at the office of the Premier at the time, serving in the security unit. So at the time when Minister Chunu was the Premier of KZN,
that's correct,
this occurred. The case was then opened, but if you can just go to towards the end of the complaint letter by Minister Chunu, he says in the middle of the page, a senior police officer, Shlongwani, I'm not sure of his rank, was later assigned to the case. I learned he found no reason. The court collapsed the case and got to a fresh start on the docket. During the period, I learned that fresh efforts were underway to get me arrested. Shlongwani was subsequently removed and the case was taken over by the then Hawks. Apparently, the Hawks got to the same mission where I was viewed as a suspect and were keen on the arrest. They held a meeting with a private investigator at some point after which they were to work together. Since then, there is silence on the whole investigation on the deceased. Key puzzles on this matter, which are a source of grave concern: the abandonment of the case around the identified and arrested suspects, including the suspected trigger puller at Josini and the manner in which the whole case has been handled up to now. Lack of progress on the investigation on the murder despite so many investigators and investigations. So it seems to be the case that Minister Chunu was complaining about the lack of progress on the investigation.
That's correct, Chair.
We understood from his evidence that at the time the DPP had already decided not to prosecute the matter, or to prosecute him in the matter.
Chair, I think it's also important to elaborate the distinction, because the DPP did not decline to prosecute a murder case. A murder case continued until the suspects were arrested and convicted and sentenced. So maybe I can give a brief summary of a defeating case. So after Minister Mchunu submitted this complaint to IPID, he's complaining about this police conduct. Subsequently to that, I was assigned to the docket to investigate that case, that complaint. Then during my investigation, including visiting the Hawks, because Hawks were the one dealing with the murder docket of Xolani, to try and ascertain about the complaint of Minister Mchunu. Then I then got to understand that there were a defeating the ends of justice case, that it was registered against the police, which were working with a private investigator. The private investigator was appointed by Minister Mchunu. So there was a defeating the ends of justice that were registered, and subsequently, because the private investigator was hired by Minister Mchunu, subsequently Minister Mchunu was also a suspect in that defeating. Then when I go through all the documents, that defeating were already declined to prosecute by the DPP. By that time, it was 5 years ago. So now when I'm trying to figure out what is a valid reason now to reopen the case after the DPP declined, that is where we realized that there were no valid reason to reopen the case. So my investigation ended there, where I submitted a report and my recommendation to the Hawks that there is nothing wrong to reopen a case as long as they follow all legal prescripts, whereby there is any new evidence, there are any new information, and then they take it, the docket, back to the DPP to overturn the decision of that DPP. Those were my recommendation, that in fact, just follow the correct procedure, because the minister is feeling harassment. So just follow those processes. Where there is a need, the DPP will decide whether someone has to be accountable and so forth. So my investigation ended there. Up until now, I don't know what happened after that.
And what you described, Mr. Gabinde, Mr. McBride, who was the executive director of IPID at the time, he had accompanied you to Minister Mchunu's house. Was he fully aware of the subsequent developments that you've described, and your recommendation to the Hawks that the investigation be discontinued?
Thank you, Chair. That visit, it was at an initial stage before I even commenced with my investigation. So if I can just highlight, Chair, about that visit. We received a complaint head office in Pretoria about the complaint of Minister Mchunu. After we've received that report, that complaint, and the complaint was assigned to me, then I had a duty now to go and visit the complainant to get more details, because in the complaint letter, you will have to get more details and interview him thorough. So what happened at one stage, we were in KZN, and Mr. McBride was present in KZN for other work. Then Mr. McBride remembered about this complaint, which he assigned to me. Then he then said, we are here in KZN, let Soma go and meet and interview Minister Mchunu, because Mr. McBride knew that that was an outstanding issue for me to go. And in fact, I'm the one who's supposed to go. Then Mr. McBride, then he said, no, let's go, I'll go with you. And then we went there, we interviewed him, and then we done, and then Mr. McBride introduced formally to myself to Minister Mchunu. Then we exchanged numbers. Then this is Mr. Nkambinde, which I assigned your complaint to him. Going forward, he's the one who will liaise with you. So that's how that visit came about.
And just two questions arising from that. The one is that, or certainly at the time when you were with IPID, was that normal practice or usual practice for an investigator to visit a complainant to discuss the matter?
It is, even if when I was in the police, we are the one as service delivery. We have to go to the complainant.
And in this case, it was, even though he was now a former premier, wasn't a minister at the time, also a high-profile complainant.
Yes, I took it like that, why Mr. McBride is accompanying me. I took it in that level, that maybe it's a complaint from a high-profile person.
And Mr. McBride appeared to know Mr. Chunu at the time?
Yeah, appeared to know each other.
And was Mr. McBride involved at any stage subsequent to your introduction to Mr. Chunu and your further investigations and your report to the Hawks? Was Mr. McBride involved at all in? No, he was never.
He was never involved until I submitted a report to him. The report that I was alluding before.
Okay. And what happened to this private investigator? Is that normal practice or usual for, well, in the first, at the time when he was appointed by Mr. Chunu, he was a suspect. He was suspect. He complained subsequently about the conduct of the Hawks. But as a suspect, to appoint a private investigator, for what purpose would that have been? To work with the police, to make sure that the police or IPID is doing their work? Can you comment on that?
Chair, if I can make it clear on that one, Minister Mchunu was not a suspect. His bodyguard or a security personnel in his office was shot dead. He was not a suspect at all. And Minister Mchunu was not happy with the progress of the investigation. He had an interest in the case because his staff member has been murdered. So hiring a private investigator, it was out of that interest that the progress is very slow. Probably the private investigator, working with the police, he might share some more light. So not as a suspect.
Well, Minister Chunu had complained. If you look at the second page of his letter of complaint, he said, it's unnumbered, unfortunately. Shlongwane was subsequently removed and there was and the case was taken over by the then Hawks. Apparently, the Hawks got the same mission where I was viewed as a suspect.
Yes, that was basically his concerns, that his a staff member made a case. The progress is very slow. There are several clues for police to follow to the arrest of perpetrators, but they are not interested to do that. In fact, they now view him as a suspect. So he did not hire, but even though I was not there, but when I look through the documentation, he did not hire a private investigator as a suspect. He hired a private investigator as a person who's got an interest in the case with a slow progress in the investigation.
Well, as you know, the Hawks then viewed that as an attempt by Minister Chunu to defeat the ends of justice by employing this private investigator, presumably to make the case go away.
Chairperson, that's not how even the defeating the ends of justice, when I peruse the docket. That is not how was registered. It was not registered on the basis of him hiring a private investigator. The defeating ends of justice emanates when the police from head office, which it was on the intervention of a former minister, Nathi Nhleko. The police from head office working with the private investigator. Subsequently, they went to the police station and take back the deceased cell phone back to the deceased family. And then the IO in the Hawks, he viewed that they are disturbing his investigation. Even if there is nothing wrong to take a deceased property, but he viewed that it has to be done through him. That's how the defeating ends of justice emanated from. It was about that cell phone. And the investigating officer, when I read all the documentation in that docket, he requested them to bring back that cell phone, of which they did. So if you read the entry of the DPP, the reasons why he declined, because I also read those reasons. The reasons, one of the reasons is saying, one, there are no prospects of successful prosecution. And in law, there is nothing wrong to take the deceased cell phone back to his family. The third reason, which I was reading there, the third reason is that when the IO requested the phone to come back, because it means he was still going to do some investigation, there is no evidence showing that the cell phone were ever tampered with. So now the prosecutor said, I cannot prove the defeating, even if the problem is the cell phone and there is no evidence showing that was it ever tampered with. So it means no one here is showing an intention to defeat. So those are some of the reasons the DPP declined to prosecute that case, Chair.
Okay. Now you mentioned late minister. Sorry. Sorry. At the time, my apologies. It was Minister of Police Nathi Nhleko. I'm reading from the letter of complaint where Mr. Chunu says, I then took the initiative and called the then Minister of Police Nathi Nhleko to request that he assigns 2 senior police officers from outside KZN to the case. He agreed. On the other hand, I approached a private investigator to assist on the matter. The 2 police officers and the private investigator met and agreed to work together. And then in the last paragraph, the private investigator informed me that seemingly I was viewed by the unit.
Sir, can the SC mind his mic? We're even struggling to follow him now. Because he just looks away from his mic and talks very low. We're struggling, Chair. Can he mind his mic, please?
See, it is the 2 of you behind the mic. So you need to help each other. That the mic is always directed to your mouth.
Mr. Nkabinde, did you hear what I read out in the Minister Mchunu's letter of complaint?
That's correct, Chair.
Yeah. He called the then Minister of Police. He had a private investigator appointed to assist in the matter. 2 police officers and the private investigator agreed to work. And then he concludes and he says, the private investigator informed me that seemingly I was viewed by the unit in Pietermaritzburg as a suspect in the murder.
Yeah, that's correct. That's what Minister Mchunu was feeling, that instead of we are giving all the information and all the necessary clues, but there is no progress in pursuing those perpetrators. Instead, I'm now viewed as a suspect. That in that context, Chair.
So after your visit to him with Mr. McBride and your own investigations and your report to the Hawks, ultimately suspects were arrested and prosecuted and sentenced.
That's correct, Chair.
Then subsequent to that matter, that would have been concluded before your departure from IPID in 2018. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair. It was not a complex investigation.
Okay.
I finished it very quickly and submit a report. I was still there.
At that time, had you already met or known Lieutenant General Mchunu?
Not at all. But it was during that time when General Mchunu was introduced to me while I was in IPID.
Then, after after you left IPID in 2018, did you subsequently have any dealings with or interaction with Minister Chunu?
I got to know Minister Mchunu in that basis. Then after that, I kept contact with him, even though it was not regularly. But he's a person that I kept contact with him as a person of a high profile. Once in a while, we do have to chat on some other general things, maybe 6 months, 8 months, but it was not regular. But I kept contact with him.
Why? What would have been your common interest to keep contact with
my
Mr.
common interest, Chair, this is I know this person as a premier, and I'm having now his direct contact with him. So he's a person I look up to as our high profile in the government, in politics. You only see these people on TV. Then once you have that, then I kept contact that now I know a premier.
Nobody.
For the status, I know the premier. Like, for instance, here in this room, if I can get a number, I'll keep it. I'll keep it. These are high people I will look up to. You see them on TV. Now I've got a direct contact with that person.